Okay, and again, is that now a cleaned up version? Dana has now been cleaned, and that is the same gunshot wound number 1 there where the label is, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Above the label.
Repetitious.
Overruled.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, it's above the label.
Okay. And doctor, can you tell us what did you determine the distance to be of that gunshot wound?
That is intermediate.
Okay. And why did you make that determination?
Very faintly on the picture. I think there is a different picture. There are faint red stippling marks from gunshot powder striking her skin. Okay. It's more on the right side of the wound.
And I can bring up I-80. Okay, yeah.
Right there is some red.
Okay. And again, that intermediate is somewhere, not contact or loose contact, but somewhere less than 3 feet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You can minimize that. And were you able to determine the path that gunshot wound took?
Yes.
And what was that?
It traveled across, following a relatively straight path to the left side of her head, struck the bone on the left side of her head, but did not exit, and then fell inside her skull to underneath her brain.
And was that, was there any other directionality of that as far as upward or downward that you determined?
I called it front to back and a little bit front to back and downward.
Okay. And gunshot wound number 2. Where was that located?
That is closer to the center of the right forehead.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay. And State's Exhibit I-87. Tell us what we're looking at there.
So this is a picture of both number 2 and number 3. We haven't discussed number 3 yet, but number 2 is the round hole on the right side of her forehead.
Okay. And I-90. And is
Objection, Judge. Repetitious.
Is that a closer up view of, again, both 2 and 3, but focusing for now on 2? That's the circular hole there,
yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yes.
And what you're calling gunshot wound number 3 has nothing to do with gunshot wound number 2. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
They're 2 separate.
They're close together.
Yes.
Okay. And what did you determine the distance on that?
That one I called indeterminate.
Okay. And based on what?
There's no gray soot or stippling around that particular wound.
Okay. And can you tell us what was the path of that particular gunshot wound?
That bullet traveled very similarly to number 1 in that it crossed from right to left and struck the bone on her left side and then fell to underneath her brain.
So difficult to hear. Again, that's the Chief Deputy Coroner, Dr. Karen Lohman, back on the stand talking about the victim's injuries at crime scene number 3. We're going to step aside for a break. Stay with us here on Court TV Live. We'll take you back into the George Wagner courtroom after this.
By Whisker.
Welcome back. I'm Chanley Painter. You're watching Court TV Live, and we are in an Ohio courtroom for the Ohio family massacre trial. Defendant George Wagner is accused of helping plan and then carry out the murders of 8 members of the Rhoden family over an alleged child custody dispute. On the stand right now, Chief Deputy Coroner Dr. Karen Lohman. Let's get you back inside the courtroom.
Okay, and can you point to that, if you don't mind, gunshot wound number 4?
Right there.
Okay. And this is after her body has been cleaned, correct?
Yes.
Okay. State's Exhibit I-80. And now you have shaved that part of the hair away so you can get a better picture?
Yes.
Okay, or a better view, I should say.
Yes.
And so did you make a determination regarding the distance of this?
Yes.
And what was that?
Indeterminate.
Okay, so indeterminate means more than 3 feet
Yes.
away? Okay, could be 5, could be 3.5, could be 10?
Yes.
Okay. And again, there appears to be kind of a bruising under the label there.
Oh, down here?
Yes.
That is livor mortis. Her face was likely turned to the right a little bit, so the blood settled a little bit on her cheek right there.
Okay. You can minimize that. And did you make a determination regarding the path of that
Yes.
particular injury?
Yes.
And what was that?
So the bullet essentially went across her head to the other side and was found on the left side, still within her brain.
Okay. So just right to left, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then finally, gunshot wound number 5, where was that located on her body? And we'll pull up the diagram for you.
So that's along her right chin.
I-22. Is that gunshot wound number 5?
Yes.
Okay. And were you able to make a determination as to the distance of that?
Yes.
And what was that?
Intermediate.
I-54?
Objection, Judge, it's repetition.
I'll overrule the objection.
Okay. This is now after the body has been washed, correct?
Yes.
And are you able to visualize that injury more clearly?
Yes.
And can you tell us, when you said it was intermediate distance, can you tell us what you base that on?
You can, yes, you can at least see 2 spots on here that are unburned gunpowder that struck her face, which tells you that it was between 3 inches and approximately 3 feet.
Okay. You can minimize that. And can you tell us what the path of that particular gunshot wound was?
That bullet struck her jaw and broke her jaw, and we collected 2 little pieces of lead along her jaw underneath her skin.
Okay. I want to ask you, would that particular gunshot wound have been lethal?
No.
Okay. So if that, for instance, was the first shot that she received, that would not have killed her?
That's correct.
Okay. Regarding the keyhole gunshot wound, number 3, would that have been lethal?
Not instantaneously, no.
Okay. And would that have also somewhat concussed her or caused a concussion of her?
Probably a concussion, what we could consider a concussion. It would probably have knocked her out.
Did you Were there any other gunshot wounds to Dana Rhoden other than those 5 gunshot wounds that you have now testified to?
No.
Okay, you see the autopsy. We are hearing the autopsy. We aren't seeing those photos out of respect for the family, but of Dana Rhoden. She was the mother of Hanna Mae, who had the child at the issue of this custody dispute. Just a sad tale. We're going to take a break and bring you back inside that courtroom in Ohio. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, longtime manager of rapper Ludacris facing a murder charge following an Atlanta shooting. His attorneys join the show as we dive deeper into this case. And on the docket, looking ahead to Monday's competency hearing in the case against Larry Miliete, we'll catch you up on everything you need to know as he awaits trial charged with the murder of his missing wife, Maya.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Better inspection and estimate.
Welcome back. We are currently listening to the deputy coroner testifying in the Ohio family massacre trial. George Wagner is on trial for the murders of 8 members of the Rhoden family. The coroner is describing the injuries to Dana Rhoden, who was found at crime scene 3. So let's take you back inside that courtroom.
Did you also collect projectile in this case, or during your autopsy of Dana?
Yes.
Okay. And is that something that you would have placed in boxes and then given to the BCID?
Yes.
Handing you first what's been marked as I-138.
These are many of the bullet fragments that we collected. It looks like they were put in individual little plastic bags and then put into this container.
Okay. I-93. And does that represent what would be contained within that box?
Yes.
Okay. And okay. Oh, go ahead and minimize that. Hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit I-139, if you can tell me what that is.
These are the pieces of lead that we collected from her gunshot wound number 5, where there were 2 pieces off to the side under her skin.
Okay. And I-119.
In the back.
119. Okay. And can you tell us if that, what that represents?
That's some of the pieces of, one of the pieces of lead that we removed from her, around her jaw or her neck area.
You can minimize that. And doctor, you talked about 5 gunshot wounds, and you were able to tell us the entrance. And I believe you also gave us testimony about where some of the bullets and projectiles ended up within the skull of Dana, correct?
Yes.
Did you notice any exit wounds?
Other than number 3, which is a keyhole wound which partially exits and enters and exits at the same time, there were no other exit wounds.
Okay. And can you tell us, do you have an opinion, or did you, observations were the bullets and projectile that you recovered from Dana Rhoden, was that consistent with the bullets and projectiles that you removed from Frankie Rhoden and Hanna Hazel-Kelly?
Yes.
Okay. And inconsistent with the bullets and projectiles that you recovered from Chris Sr. and Gary Rhoden?
Yes, that's correct.
So you did not notice any of the Hornady rounds or that red plastic kind of signature characteristic?
Nope.
Okay. And were the injuries that you saw here in Dana also consistent with that smaller caliber bullet?
Yes.
Okay. State's Exhibit I-11.
Still the same.
Still Dana. Okay, and again, you photograph the hands in each autopsy that you do, correct?
Yes.
And what is the purpose of doing that?
One of the things is we're looking for injuries. We're looking to see if the nails are broken or if there's some fresh injuries, scratches on the hand. It also documents whether there's any jewelry on the hand.
Okay. I-12. And again, is that the different view of the left hand of Dana?
Yeah, I was thinking that's the left hand, yes. That's her palm.
Yes, okay. I-19. Go ahead.
That's the back of her right hand.
Okay, and then I-20.
And essentially the palm of her right hand.
Okay. And you did not notice any defensive wounds or anything else that would indicate that there was an altercation or encounter?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to remove some of these items from you so that you're not surrounded.
Okay. That's okay.
All right, in studio with me, criminal defense attorney Daryl Cohen, and in New York City, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira, as we watch the chief deputy coroner there in Ohio walk this jury through the autopsy photos. They start with Dana Rhoden. She's the grandmother of this child who's at the center of this all. The custody dispute battle. Suffered some really graphic injuries. Daryl, as they walk this jury through these crime scenes, one thing is glaringly missing, and that is any physical evidence tied to the defendant sitting in the courtroom.
Sometimes the emotional evidence is better than the physical. And we have to remember, Chanley, that we're lawyers and we're analyzing this of what is and what isn't. These 12 men and women on the jury, they're not lawyers. For many of them, this may be the first and only time that they are heavily involved in a criminal case, especially in a trial. And so when they hear that the person in the courtroom is actually tied to these horrible, horrific acts, it's tough to erase it from their mind. I know we talk about guilty beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. But that's not really what goes on in someone's mind. That's the law. That's not realistic. It's not realism.
That's a great point. They're building up this, they're going in chronological order, their case in chief, going crime scene by crime scene, building up, like you said, this emotional, really outrage when you see these photos about what this family suffered, and then they're going to get to the pieces of the puzzle that point to that man right there on the screen, the defendant, George Wagner. Marie, the defense in this case, I've lost count of the number of times they've objected to these gruesome photos being shown in the courtroom. They even moved for a mistrial yesterday inside the courtroom, saying that some of the photos, you don't have to show 4 or 5 of the same photo, they say, just one would suffice. How do you think that strategy, clearly the judge continues to overrule that motion, but their strategy to move for a mistrial, trying to keep these photos out?
It's a strategy that he has to use because he has to zealously defend his client and preserve those objections on appeal, more importantly. And I can't say how much I agree with Daryl. It is emotional evidence because jurors are looking at that, and it is an excellent strategy. They're listening to everything that coroner is saying and the agent that was on the stand before from a CBI. The location of the body, the absence of DNA really shows pre-planning, that post-slaughter, they took time to pick up the shell casings. And with Dana, they shot her 5 times, no defensive wounds, and they found 1 lonely shell casing under the baby's crib. That's emotional testimony, Daryl. On point.
Yep, I'm thankful to have both of you with me this afternoon. We're going to squeeze in a break. You both will stand by as we get back inside this courtroom in Ohio for the Ohio Family Massacre trial. Stay with us here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Massacre. You're watching Court TV Live. I'm Chanley Painter. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I'm in for Julie Grant, and we begin with 2 live trials. We're covering one out of Connecticut, one in Ohio. Now, the jury has been dismissed for the day for the defamation trial in the InfoWars host, Alex Jones. The jury must decide there how much money Jones should pay the Sandy Hook families after calling the school shooting a hoax. Court is scheduled to resume next Tuesday. And in Ohio, we're following the latest in the Ohio Family Massacre trial, where defendant George Wagner stands accused of aggravated murder for the execution-style deaths of 8 members of the Rhoden family. And on the stand this afternoon, the Chief Deputy Coroner, Dr. Karen Lohman. Let's take you back inside the courtroom.
Underwear line or the bikini line, and can you tell us what those initials are?
The initials are EJW.
And then I-5. And again, she arrived in those clothing and without shoes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And J24. And what are you taking a picture of there?
We are taking a picture of the jewelry that's in her ear. The jewelry's metal, and so it shows up on the x-ray.
Okay, so you just document that so it can be explained in the x-ray?
Yes.
Okay. You can minimize that. And did you, in fact, take x-rays of Dana Rhoden?
Yes.
I-85. B as in boy.
What was that exhibit number?
J85. And if you can tell us what we are looking at.
This is a side view of Hanna's head. You can see that this elongated piece of metal and a shorter one there, those are the earrings that we saw previously in the previous picture. And then you can see some small radiopaque white pieces of bullet in her head.
And when you conducted your examination of Hannah Rhoden, how many gunshot wounds did you observe her to have?
2.
Showing you it's been marked as State's Exhibit J, 95, which are part of the diagrams that you completed in this during this autopsy. Can you indicate to us where gunshot wound number 1 would have been?
It's in a lower. There you go. So the diagram on the left, gunshot wound number 1 is in the back of her head, on the left side.
Okay, the one that's in the upper.
Yeah, the upper one. Yes.
Okay. J56. Can you flip that? Flip it so it's... Okay. And can you tell us where is the gunshot wound number 1?
Gunshot wound number 1 is by that white label, higher up on her head.
Okay. And this is after she has been both cleaned and you have shaved a portion of her hair away,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't believe we have any pictures of it prior to that. Was that hard to see when she still had all of her hair on her head?
Yes, it would have been difficult to see through the hair, so.
Okay. And then J57. And can you tell us what we're looking at there?
This is a closer picture of gunshot wound number 1.
Okay. And can you tell us if you determined a distance of that gunshot wound?
Yes.
And what was that?
It was indeterminate.
Okay. So again, that indeterminate means some distance greater than 3 feet.
Yes.
Okay. And again, what makes you say that?
There was nothing on the skin like gunpowder stippling or the gray powder.
That's true. And were you able to determine the path that gunshot wound took?
Yes.
And what was that?
It went across her head to the right side of her head and was found on the side of her head in her brain.
Okay. And so left to right, did you also determine front to back or back to front?
Back to front.
Okay. Dr. Lohman, did you observe photographs or diagrams regarding the location where Dana, Hanna Mae, and Christopher Jr. were shot?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Those were shared with you at the time that you were conducting your examination?
Yes.
Some of them, correct?
Yes, yes. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit C44,
4:36. And if you can tell us if this is the position of Hanna's body at the time that she is found in the
Yes.
bed. She's laying on her right side away from this entrance area here. Is the directionality that you just testified to consistent with the position she's found in the bed of someone being over in this area shooting at her?
Yes, in this area or even right next to her bed on that side.
Okay. Okay. And then I believe you indicated there were 2 gunshot wounds. So the second gunshot wound, where was that located?
That was behind her left ear.
J26. Okay. And is that gunshot wound number 1?
That is, before we cleaned it up.
Okay. Gunshot number 2. Sorry. I just asked if it was gunshot wound number 1. It was
I went
gunshot
along
wound
with
number
it.
2. Yeah. We both thought we knew what we were talking about. So that is gunshot wound number 2. We've already discussed gunshot number 1, which
That's
was
correct.
higher up.
That's correct.
Correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. So this is gunshot number 2. J36, please. And is that just a closer up version of that gunshot wound number 2?
Yes,
Correct.
and it's been cleaned.
Okay. And were you able to determine a distance on that particular
Yes.
gunshot wound? And what was that?
Indeterminate.
Okay. And once again, that means that greater than 6 feet distance, correct?
3 feet.
3 feet, sorry. J59. And again, this is gunshot wound number 2, correct?
Yes.
And you can see kind of above that, and if you can point to it, that would be helpful. Kind of that almost brownish looking, yeah, what is that?
So that's indentation. It changes color and turns a little yellow-brown after death. So her head was laying against something hard on, that's her left side at the time of death. And then the blanching or the white and the brown change to it is all what happens after she died. So she was just leaning against something hard at the time of her death, and it left a mark on her skin.
Okay. And J56, just for purposes of that orientation of that. And so again, you can see that brownish area there kind of between gunshot wounds number 1 and 2, but closest to gunshot wound number 2, correct?
Yes.
Right there about the ear. Okay.
Objection to this photo, Judge.
Overruled.
Can you pull back up the X-ray in J85, please?
TD with what?
Yes,
Same
B,
one?
yep. And tell me, first of all, does this help you demonstrate or show the path, or is there another X-ray that would be better for that?
Probably the other X-ray where you're looking at the front
From
of
the
her
front?
face.
Okay, so that would be A. And is that, that's not really direct on I do have another one that's more direct on. Would that be better?
You can see it here. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so gunshot wound number 1 started over here. There is some metal that was left behind around the entrance, and the bullet is right here from number 1. A similar thing happened behind her left ear at gunshot wound number 2. There was some metal left behind around the entrance, and then it came across her head and split into 2. So that was the path of number 2. So you hear some of the earrings, and she had an earring on this side too. Actually, you could see that better on the lateral, on the side view, but she had an earring in her left ear as well.
And so you did determine the directionality of the gunshot wound number 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that was similar left to right, correct?
Yes.
And you did not do a back to front or front to back on that, correct?
No, because it split in 2, so it would be like saying left and right. So.
Okay. All right. And I should have asked you this as far as Dana goes, and I did not, that you got a toxicology report for that, for Dana, correct?
Yes.
And what was the result of that? And if you need State's Exhibit I or if you recall.
She has caffeine.
Okay. No drugs?
No.
No alcohol?
No.
Okay. Did you also, well, let me ask you this. Were there other injuries that you noted on Hanna Rhoden?
No.
Okay. So the hemorrhages and the subdural hemorrhage and subarachnoid hemorrhage are all within the brain, correct?
Yes, it's all a result of the gunshot wounds, the hemorrhages and the injuries to the scalp and the bone, the skull itself and the brain.
Okay. And then when you say inferior cortical contusions with brain perforations and lacerations, can you tell us what that means?
Inferior cortical contusions means because of the concussion of the bullet crossing her brain, brain actually has bruises on the underside. The bullet didn't touch the underside of her brain, but the brain shook as the bullet went through it. And so it actually gets bruised because it bounces along the bottom of the skull. So that's the inferior cortical contusions. And what else did I say?
The brain perforations and lacerations, so.
Well, the bullet has a hole through it because of the bullets going through, and then the brain tears, and that's another word for that is lacerations.
And
there's the chief deputy coroner talking about 19-year-old Hanna Rhoden, one of the 8 victims in this case, only 19 years old. In fact, she had a 5-day-old baby, her second child, in the bed with her when she was shot twice that morning. Very, very sad. Stay with us. We're going to get you back inside that courtroom for more testimony. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice. A senseless tragedy in small-town America.
This was a pre-planned execution.
It was a feud between families that ended with multiple murders.
Came in like thieves in the night and took 8 lives.
George Wagner faces murder charges in connection with the killing.
Wagner's brother and parents also charged.
It's very much a family affair. All for one, one for all.
It's a chilling story. It will be an intense trial.
The Ohio Family Massacre Trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
By Whisker.
Hello, 911.
No, we got active shooter.
Get down.
I was shot in the face. People everywhere, bodies everywhere, chaos everywhere.
This is just a kid. How did he get here?
Were there moments where you second-guessed yourself?
No. There's no one way to say this person is or this person isn't going to become a mass shooter.
Court TV presents Rampage Killers. Premieres October 2nd, only on Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. Testimony is underway right now in the Ohio Family Massacre trial. Defendant George Wagner faces aggravated murder and more than a dozen other charges for the deaths of 8 members of the Rhoden family. Of course, the jury's hearing more details about the evidence collected at all of the crime scenes. They're on crime scene number 3, and this is where Dana Rhoden and 16-year-old Chris Rhoden Jr. and 19-year-old Hanna Rhoden were all found shot to death. Let's take you back inside the courtroom. The chief deputy coroner on the stand telling the jury about the injuries to Hanna Mae Rhoden.
This is what we collected from her head. There are a lot of little pieces and 2 relatively big pieces that look like bullets.
Okay. And the red things in there, is that just blood or tissue?
That's tissue.
Okay. And J81. So again, same thing, just with the label there.
Yes.
Oops. From the box, and I just turn that off so I can see that. J105. You can tell us what that is.
This is the container that's in that picture and contains all the metal pieces that we have collected during autopsy.
And Dr. Lohman, again, you testified about the entrance wounds. Did you observe any exit wounds on the head of Hanna Rhoden?
No.
Okay. And once again, were the bullet and bullet fragments that you found, along with the injuries that you observed, consistent with the with Dana Rhoden's autopsy?
Yes.
Okay. And consistent with Frankie and Hannah Hazel's
yes.
autopsies? Okay. And once again, inconsistent with the injuries and bullets and bullet fragments that you pulled out of the bodies of Gary and Christopher Sr.?
That's correct.
Do you have an opinion as to the cause of death of Hanna Rhoden?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
Multiple gunshot wounds to the head.
Okay. And I don't think that I asked you that question regarding Dana. So do you have an opinion as to the cause of death of Dana Rhoden?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
Multiple gunshot wounds to the head. Yep.
And Dr. Lohman, did you also conduct the autopsy examination of Christopher Rhoden Jr.?
Yes.
And I believe you offered us testimony previously that you conducted the autopsy examinations of all of the males except for Christopher Rhoden Sr. on Sunday, which would have been April 24th.
Yes.
And similarly, did you do, obviously prepared a full report after you had conducted your autopsy?
Yes.
And also made diagrams as we've seen with each of the previous examinations?
Yes.
While you're conducting the exam itself?
Yes.
I'm going to approach you first with what has been marked as State's Exhibit K. And if you can take a look at that and tell us what that is, please.
This is the autopsy report with the opinion page on front and the toxicology on the back that I prepared for Christopher Rhoden Jr.
And State's Exhibit K89, I believe is 4 pages stapled together. If you could tell us what that is.
These are the diagrams I prepared while I was performing the autopsy.
Okay, and again, in your handwriting in what you did contemporaneously with the examination.
Yes.
And K97?
Yes, this is the chain of custody for Christopher Rhoden Jr. His body was put in our storage cooler at 6:17 a.m. on Saturday.
Okay, now the Chief Deputy Coroner moving on to the youngest victim in this case, 16-year-old Chris Rhoden Jr., asleep in his bed when he was brutally murdered, allegedly by the Wagners. Let's talk about the evidence we've been seeing and hearing. I have criminal defense attorney Daryl Cohen here with me in studio, and in New York City, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira. Marie, I'm going to go out to you as far as what we've been seeing and hearing today. They're on crime scene number 3. We expect tomorrow crime scene number 4, where one final victim was also found deceased. This is tough testimony, but it's, like you said earlier, necessary testimony. And I have to have your take as far as next week after they finish the crime scenes. What do you think the prosecutors have to do to really, because we haven't heard anything connecting George Wagner to these scenes. So what would you put on next with your former prosecutor hat to really break down and tie this to the defendant in the courtroom?
First off, I would argue that the absence of the DNA and the stipulation that no DNA is there doesn't hurt my case, that it was a conspiracy to commit a murder, and they did a lot of very good post-slaughter cleaning, and that they shouldn't be rewarded for that, that shouldn't infer that they're not responsible for what happened. That's what I would do. And also, the fact that that coroner conducted all of the tests, all of the autopsies, was a good thing too, because that doesn't leave room for inconsistencies. She did it all, and she's explaining that all of the bodies did not contain the same bullets. So it's telling me that different guns were used. It's inferring that different people did the shooting. And I think that she is an excellent witness for the prosecution.
She is, definitely. I agree with you. Yes, there were actually 3 different guns we learned in opening statements used in these murders. Yet, Daryl, we're going to have the mother and brother of George Wagner come into the courtroom to testify for the prosecution as part of their plea deal here. The brother is expected to not point the finger at George Wagner and say he didn't shoot anybody, he wasn't part of the planning of this or the cover-up afterwards. Something the defense could certainly hang their hat on.
Something the defense needs to hang their hat on and wants to hang their hat on. But Jenny, let me say something else. I'm concerned. I remember an old television show, warning, warning, Mr. Robinson, warning. This assistant coroner, they need to get her off of the witness stand. They need to move her around the courtroom. We need some energy from the prosecutor. We need some energy there, because we are faced with a possibility, though hopefully not the probability, that too much of this repetitiveness with the same exact level and tone and body language is going to start boring the jurors. And you want the impact for the jury, and you want to keep that impact. Right. So I would like to see them up the energy. Yeah, give me something that's going to entertain me, even though as a juror, I don't want to admit I'm being entertained, but that's the truth of it. That's
Hold
what
something
happens.
up and show them a photo, a diagram, and she is, Marie, she, like you said, she's a great witness. I've been in the courtroom, and this jury's so attentive. When anything's held up, Marie, they are leaning in, they're looking at this evidence, but it's been a week. It's been a whole week of this type of evidence, and you think that everyone probably is weary, right?
I want to disagree with Daryl for the first time during this segment, and I want to say I remember the show It's Lost in Space, and I hope I didn't date myself. This testimony can never be boring. I don't think so. I think that everything she has to say is being listened to by those jurors intently, and there is no sleepy factor this week and this presentation by the prosecutors.
Yep, we shall see. It's Friday, so everyone, we have a weekend to rest and gather and start their case again new, but still a lot to come this afternoon inside that Ohio courtroom. Again, still hearing from the chief deputy coroner, some key evidence brought in for the prosecution. We're going to get you back inside that courtroom after this quick break.
To get a free quote.
Watching Court TV Live, I'm Chanley Painter. We are listening to testimony from the chief deputy coroner in the Ohio family massacre trial, where the defendant, George Wagner, is accused of plotting and carrying out the murders of 8 members of the Rhoden family over what prosecutors say was a bitter child custody battle. Right now, that coroner is going over the injuries to the youngest victim, Chris Rhoden Jr., only 16 years old. He was found shot to death at the 3rd crime scene. Let's go in together and watch court.
With the doorway being here and the body being positioned in this direction, facing this direction. First of all, these injuries that you're telling us about, 1, 2, and 4, those were in the back of the head, correct?
They were in the back.
Okay. And is that consistent with the body being positioned this way and somebody coming up and shooting him from this side?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we already discussed the distance was the same for those 1 and 2, and the direction was the same.
Yes.
Okay. So gunshot wound number 3, K30. And can you tell us if you are able to see the wound in that
yes.
picture? Okay, and where is that located?
That's right below the label. It's a little a little higher than his temple.
And K47? Okay. And is that a close-up of the same wound?
Yes, and we shaved it just a little bit.
Okay. And can you tell us, did you have an opinion as to the distance of that particular wound?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
That one's indeterminate as well. Okay.
And again, because you don't see any of that stippling or other burn marks, et cetera, that you would see if it was closer. Okay. And can you tell us the direction of that particular gunshot wound?
That bullet I've described as going right to left.
Okay. Again, same direction that the others had gone.
Yes.
Correct? Okay, gunshot wound number 4, K35. Turn it up the other way, please. Okay. And again, can you tell us where gunshot wound number 4 is?
Number 4 is the one that's right above the label.
And again, obviously cleaned and shaved as well.
Yes.
Okay. And K36. Again, just a closer up view of gunshot wound number 4,
yes.
Correct? And can you tell us if you determined the distance of that gunshot wound?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
That one's indeterminate as well.
Okay. And what was the pathway of that?
I had described that one as right to left.
Okay. So basically, as far as Christopher Rhoden Jr. is concerned, all of the gunshot wounds were from an indeterminate distance, correct?
That's correct.
And all right to left?
Yes.
Okay. And then 3 of the 4, basically in the back part of his head with the number 3 being the temple.
Yes, there's one that one of the gunshot wounds, and I'm not sure which one it is since they're all on the right side, but one went in through the bone and just sat on the right side of the head, did not travel to the other side. Why it did that, I don't know. Maybe, well, I have no idea why it sat there. But so one bullet was recovered on the right, 3 on the left.
And going back to that X-ray, let's remember if it was A, B. Are you able to see the fracture in that?
Yes.
Okay, tell us where the fracture is.
Well, sometimes when you have a significant enough fracture in the skull, you can see it on the X-ray. So, see this is a dark line across the top of the head. That's a fracture of the skull. So at least one of the fractures of the skull went all the way across his skull. And here you can see it's a little irregular. This is probably one where some of the bullets probably struck the bone, attempted to exit, but did not, just fractured the bone there.
Okay, so one of those bullets, it looks like, is kind of at the start of that fracture, perhaps, on that
yes.
Right side. Okay, where it kind of stayed. All right, State's Exhibit K31. And can you tell us what we're looking at there?
So again, the base of his skull was fractured, his orbital plates are broken, and so he's got a bruise of his left upper eyelid because of the trauma behind it. And the inner bone of the ear was broken on the left side, so he's bleeding out of his left ear.
And again, you have other injuries noted here, the subgaleal hemorrhage, the subdural hemorrhage, and subarachnoid hemorrhages. Again, those are all within the brain, is that correct? Okay. And then you have cerebral lacerations and hemorrhage again.
From the paths of the bullet damaging the brain.
Okay. And did you observe any exit wounds to Christopher Jr.?
No.
Did you collect?
All right, the jury. 2016. We have to take a break. We're going to get you back in that courtroom for more live testimony here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, longtime manager of rapper Ludacris facing a murder charge following an Atlanta shooting. His attorneys join the show as we dive deeper into this case. And on the docket, looking ahead to Monday's competency hearing in the case against Larry Miliete, we'll catch you up on everything you need to know as he awaits trial charged with the murder of his missing wife, Maya.
Closing Arguments with Vinny Politan tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Today.
Welcome back. Testimony is underway this afternoon in the Ohio family massacre trial. Defendant George Wagner is accused of helping plan and then carry out the murders of 8 members of the Rhoden family over an alleged child custody dispute. On the stand right now this afternoon, Chief Deputy Coroner Dr. Karen Lohman. She's been on the stand many times, but now she's testifying to one of the final victims, Chris Rhoden Jr.'s injuries. Let's go back live inside the courtroom.
And did you also obtain a toxicology regarding Christopher Rhoden Jr.?
Yes.
And what was the result of the toxicology?
He has caffeine.
Okay, so again, caffeine. Any alcohol?
No.
And any illegal substances?
No.
And Dr. Lohman, I believe you testified to this before, but do you know or do you have an opinion if there was a silencer used on a weapon, would that impact, or could that possibly impact your distance determinations, I guess?
It possibly could, yes.
Okay. And doctor, do you have an opinion as to the cause of death of Christopher Rhoden Jr.?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
Multiple gunshot wounds to the head.
Okay. And doctor, again, all the opinions that you have discussed today, are those all to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
All right, the defense may cross-examine.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you again. Your third trip from Cincinnati?
Yes.
Lovely drive, isn't it? Okay, Doctor, thank you again for being here. I really do appreciate it. I do just have a few follow-up questions, if I could. Then I'm going to ask you to help me complete the chart that we've done previously.
Okay.
You have all your reports and everything?
Yes.
All right. Just to follow up on one of the last points the prosecutor made, the silencer. How would that impact your determination of distance?
A silencer, in general, would fit around or in the area of the muzzle.
Yes.
And it could capture some of the soot or stippling that normally would have landed on clothes or the body. It may capture that.
So if I understand what you're saying, the distance could actually be closer than what you have observed.
Yes.
And that would be the impact of a silencer.
A potential impact.
Potential
yes.
impact.
Yes.
Right. All right, just a few other things. Some of the basics to make sure I understand your opinions. You do not know the order of the shots fired into each victim, correct?
That's correct.
Right. And you do not know the time in between the shots for each victim.
That's correct.
And with respect to Chris Jr., since you just talked about him, any one of those 4 shots, I believe he had, any one of those 4 shots would have been fatal, is that accurate?
Yes.
And any one of those 4 shots would have rendered him unconscious?
Yes.
I think you covered that with Dana, but let me ask you about Hanna. She had 2 gunshots basically to the back of her head. Is that accurate?
Yes, back half of her head.
Back half of her head. And could you just demonstrate for the jury so everyone can see, on your own body, if you could, where gunshot wound number 1 was for Hanna?
It's on the left side of her head. It's about right here.
All right, and that one was going from back to front?
Yes.
So if you could point to your head again. The weapon used would have been behind her head when it struck the back of her head. Is that right?
It could be next to her or behind her.
Okay. Is that consistent or inconsistent with her looking at the person who shot her?
With the bullet traveling back to front, that would be inconsistent.
All right. And gunshot wound number 2 that she had, could you demonstrate that?
That was behind her ear.
So the same general area but lower, is that
Yes.
accurate?
Yes.
As cross-examination begins underway there in Ohio, I still have with me criminal defense attorney Daryl Cohen here in studio with me, and in New York City, defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira. Marie, how do you go about, we hear at the beginning of this cross-examination, but cross-examining a medical examiner about injuries, what would be the main takeaway you would want to get out of her?
Does your examination tell you who the shooter was? Basically, it wasn't my client. I think she's a multi-purpose witness here, and what I'm getting from her, it was an ambush of a defenseless person who now she's saying didn't even see the bullet coming because of the entry points.
Right, and she's demonstrating trajectory of those bullet wounds. And Daryl, also we're hearing that based on the fact that really none of these victims moved. There's multiple victims in the house. That there was so much shooting going on, you would think they would hear something, wake up, move around, try to run, but all of them were still in their bed, what she thought asleep. So that indicates to her that a silencer was used. That goes to premeditation, Daryl. Those are some strong points for the prosecution.
Janely, these are incredibly good, strong points for the prosecution. And if I were the defense lawyer, the best thing that defense lawyer can do is leave. No questions. You don't want that jury to linger anymore on these horrendous pictures of these atrocities that took place. And yes, it was quiet, likely a silencer. And as a result of that, thank you very much. No questions. I don't know why sometimes lawyers can't say that magic thank you very much, no questions.
Yeah, sometimes it gives the impression of maybe there was something left out on direct. Defense just wants to have this appearance of that. We'll see.